Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. Hope you're doing well. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfers news. It's Friday. It's positive. The weather is shining. Football Premier League is looking like it's going to be back in about 3 weeks' time. And look, United have some positivity around them. And I tweeted this just before I started recording this actually. That, I mean, look, whether it's absence make the heart grow stronger or whatever, positivity seems to be around Manchester United at the moment, and it's down to Solskjaer and the boys to keep that going when football comes back. So let's keep it going. But look, who are Manchester United's top 4 transfer targets at the moment? ESPN were talking about this yesterday, and actually, to be fair, from the people I've spoken to, and I'm sure from what you've seen around, there's a lot of logic to what they're saying our top 4 transfer targets are. We'll be talking about that in a moment. Also, a very interesting story about a young Italian striker that's been linked to us on the Dimarzio website. So could be some credibility to that. We'll talk about that. McTominay's been talking about what sort of midfielder he thinks he is as well. And also we'll be talking about Van Gaal's latest comments. Sympathy or no sympathy? We'll talk to that towards the end. And also, Cooking with Goldbridge is back today if you're interested in that. I've dropped a link in the video description. It's going up at midday. A lot of people are enjoying this series. I think you'll enjoy the one today. So I've dropped a link in the video description if people are interested in watching that. I promise you will like it. But let's get into United and Solskjaer's top 4 targets then. So ESPN are saying that United have been offered Coutinho, as I spoke about last night, but they've got no interest in him, which is good. And the top 4 targets are Jadon Sancho, Jack Grealish, Timo Werner, Moussa Dembele. Now, I think actually that should just be a 5. 5 works well. Who are Manchester United's top 5 transfer targets? Because Jude Bellingham's in there. So that is the 5. That's the only thing I would say that's different to what I know, what people I've spoken to, and what I've read from people that I consider to be credible. Those 5 would be Manchester United's top 5 transfer targets at the moment, and I wouldn't add anybody into that. Have they got 5 transfer targets? I think they've probably got 3, and then they've got backups in those positions. For example, if Moussa Dembele is the number 1 transfer target for a striker, you don't get him, maybe you drop down to Timo Werner. If Paul Pogba goes, you can maybe go for Jack Grealish. If he doesn't go, you don't go for Grealish. Sancho's obviously our number 1 right winger, and we do want Jude Bellingham as well. So really it's 3 transfer targets, but the top 5 include people that we might go for if we don't go for the number 1 target. So Jadon Sancho we know about. I think you can park that one straight away. We're after him. Jude Bellingham, we're definitely after him. And then that leaves Grealish, as I've said before, who is dependent on Pogba going. And then Moussa Dembele and Werner. And that, to me, that they're the 2 positive ones out of that. Because we know about Sancho. We know about Bellingham. We know about the links to Grealish. But Werner and Moussa Dembele, very interesting because I've got no problem with taking either of those. And the Gaal story is obviously very big at the moment, and I do believe he will stay and complete the season at United, but then I think he's definitely going to go back to China, and he should go back because economically it doesn't suit us to get a 31-year-old on 300k a week for 20 million quid. So he will go back, and then there is options in there. And we'll be talking about this link from Dimarzio in a moment, but the Dimarzio.com in a moment. But Werner, the race, look, I ain't going to say anything more about Werner. I would love Timo Werner to come to Manchester United. I think he would become very special. I think he would be, if Sancho's the status signing, I think Sancho would be very good at United. But I think Werner might become a fan favourite quite quickly in the mould of a Bruno or Herrera, who you go, look, he's not coming with a load of glamour and everything like that, but you'll see straight away that this is a guy who means it. He knows what he's doing, and he will be a success. So I would love Timo Werner to come to Manchester United, and I hope that there is something we can do, and I hope that Solskjaer is as hungry as some of us, the fans, are for him, because I have said this, I had an obsession with Bruno Fernandes for a long time, and I thought we weren't going to get him. I was very angry about it. I just felt he was the player that we should have got. And I said the same about Fabinho 3 years ago, and we didn't get him, and he went to Liverpool and he was good for them, and I think he would have been great for us. We didn't get him. Bruno, we got him. And I think Werner's another one who could go to Liverpool, but actually if he comes to us or wherever he goes, he will be a player that we go, we should have gone for him. A bit like Arsenal with Aubameyang. A lot of you said we should go for him, and Arsenal got him, and he's done very well for them. So I think Werner is one of those players that if United have got any appetite to get him, go and get him. Do it. Be aggressive and go and get that deal if he wants to come, because I think he would make such a difference. And look, you can solve the who's going to play where problems later. For all we know, one of our strikers could go and break their leg and be out for 6 months, in which case Werner plays anyway. But I think that, the competition for places is something you have to demand at Manchester United. So I'd love Timo Werner to come. Just have to monitor that situation. It's good that he is in our target, he's in our range. And Moussa Dembele, I think I mean, look, I suppose the important thing is who's the number one striker. We know Sancho's the number one right winger. We know Grealish if Pogba goes. We know Jude Bellingham's one for the future that they really want. Who's the number one striker that they want? And I think there is some lack of clarity around that. And maybe that comes from Manchester United themselves. Is Timo Werner our number one transfer target for the striker position? I don't think he is. I think we'd like him. I think we probably think he's going to Liverpool. But I don't get the feeling he's United's number one target. Is Moussa Dembele our number one target? I don't feel that he is. I think that logically he's a good person to go for because he's played in the Premier League, he's played in Scotland, he's played in France, he's a good striker. He's ready to take that step up. He'll be available for a reasonable price because he plays for Lyon, who aren't in Europe, and the French league have had to obviously cancel their league. So I think there's a good deal to be done there. But I feel he's more likely to go to Chelsea or maybe another club. So I don't know. It's definitely not a Gaal. I can't see us be looking at Cavani. We want a striker. But who that number one striker is, I don't know. Werner and Moussa Dembele almost come together for me. We won't get both, but I feel that they are probably two of our better options to go for. So that's where we are at the moment. I feel that in relation to Solskjaer's top 5 transfer targets, I think for me, I wouldn't be adding anybody else in other than, and in this order, number 1 target Sancho, number 2 target Bellingham, number 3 target, well, maybe Grealish if Pogba goes, because I still think that's got more legs in it. And then Werner and Moussa Dembele. Get your top 5 in below, but this is from what I've heard, this is from some articles, and this is just what logically makes sense to me at the moment. We need to get the transfer meter back, don't we, to be honest with you. But an interesting striker link that I read last night came from David Amiol on Twitter, who I think is very good, works alongside DiMarzio and does his own podcast, Calcio Land. I think it might be Calcio Pod actually, I've mixed the two up, but look, he tweeted an article from DiMarzio.com last night about Pietro Pellegri, who is a striker that Manchester United apparently been linked to. Now, when you read the article, it's not written by DiMarzio, and it says editorial staff writer. So I don't know. I mean, look, DiMarzio to me is a name that has credibility next to it. We know Fabrizio Romano works alongside him as well. So I don't delve into his website enough to know if there is a lot of articles in there that don't actually come to fruition. But this is interesting because if you know anything about Pietro Pellegri, he's 19 years of age. He's at Monaco. He moved from Monaco to from Genoa to Monaco for about £18 million, and his injury record is unbelievably bad. I think he's the second youngest striker to score in the French league, which shows you how young he was when he came to the French league. I think he's the youngest scorer in Serie A history. He was touted as the next big thing. But they've actually and I was reading an article about this morning, he's actually been sort of used as evidence of overplaying young players because he has a lot of muscle injuries. But apparently Manchester United have been long-term admirers of him and are looking at him again. I would be very surprised if we went for a player like this. But Pellegri, if you don't know anything about him, he is, when he's fit, and he hasn't been fit a lot, he's 6'2", and he's sort of in that Erling Haaland sort of mould. Now, I'm not comparing him to Erling Haaland. Erling Haaland at the moment's tearing it up. But he's a hard player to sort of scout because he hasn't played enough. But I sort of remember him when he was breaking through. And, I mean, that was a few years ago now, which sounds ridiculous for a 19-year-old. But 6'2", he's actually quite good with both feet. He's relatively quick for a tall player. And, he can finish. So I think, when you consider he's actually around the same age as Gomez and Chong, and for what he's done in his career, he's still got the potential to have a massive career ahead of him, and he's still young enough to work through these injuries if they're not going to be long-term problems. But look, whether United are in for him or not, I don't know. But look, we mention it because there might be something in it, and to be honest with you, if he could stay fit, I would be interested in signing him because I think he's definitely a player that would come to United and go on our bench and work his way in, but he'd have to stay fit, and he does offer us something different. So I think he'd be a very exciting player for Manchester United to sign, but fitness is the big thing. And look, I can't be a hypocrite here. I've said it about Eric Bailly, I've said it about Delot. Do United go and buy players that have got fitness problems? I think the thing with him would be you'd have to really analyse his medical and say, look, we're not going to pay a lot of money for him. And ultimately, what are the chances that he's going to stay fit long term? Is this something to do with, have they ruined his career by playing him too young? Or will he actually grow out of it and and stay fit for a long time? But an interesting one nonetheless. If you like your betting odds, I thought I'd just throw this in. Coral, remember yesterday we said that Sancho's favourite to come to United, he's evens, and the next second favourite I think was Real Madrid at 5-1 and Chelsea at 6-1. In relation to Harry Kane, we're 2-1 favourites to sign Harry Kane, with Real Madrid at 9-2 and Bayern Munich at 8-1. I mean, nobody's signing Harry Kane, but I thought I'd just offer that out there. We are favourites to sign Harry Kane, if that actually means anything. I mean, look, you could get odds on who's the favourite to sign Messi. He's not going anywhere. It doesn't mean he's going to Man City because they're favourites to sign him. He's not leaving. So, yeah, we're not getting Harry Kane. We need to move on from that. Scott McTominay, interesting chat. I think it was on the MUTV page yesterday or the day before, talking about him. And this is something we've spoken about on the United stand. He said that, you look at Roy Keane, you look at Zidane, people who are box-to-box. And he basically said, look, the running power I've got, I should be testing teams more. I should be breaking lines like Paul Pogba does, and very much put himself in that box-to-box category, which is interesting because a footballer will always have a drive to play somewhere. I mean, I remember when I was like 12, I was quite a skillful player, but I was about 5'11". And I remember my granddad, he was big into football. He said, you can't keep playing on the wing. You're going to be about 6'4". You don't get 6'4" wingers. So I adjusted myself. I moved inside, played in the centre midfield, got to 6 foot when I was about 14 and never grew. I never grew again. So I could have been a 6 foot winger. You can be a 6 foot winger. Easily you can do that. You don't get many 6'4" wingers. But in relation to Scott McTominay, if he sees himself as a box-to-box midfielder, a lot of you see him as a CDM, as a Matic replacement, and I don't. I think he's a box-to-box, but does that not represent problems, or nice problems, again, when we talk about Werner coming in and the competition for places with Martial and Rashford, etc.? Well, look at Scott McTominay. If he doesn't see himself as a CDM, Matic does. Fred sees himself as box-to-box, definitely, because he said, I need to score more goals. Pogba doesn't want to be a CDM either. McTominay wants to be box-to-box as well. Somebody's got to be the CDM, and does that not push us into the market even more that we need a centre defensive midfielder? Because beyond Matic, who plays as the holding midfielder? It's such an important position, and, Pogba can do it, McTominay can do it, but is it their role? No. And Manchester United need a specialist. I've said this. I said this before last summer. Last summer I wanted Bruno, but somebody said to me, what's your number one target? I said, we need a specialist centre defensive midfielder in the mould of a Fabinho or a Kante or an Ndidi, somebody like that. We need a holding midfielder with Premier League quality. And I think that McTominay statement over the years, I think he wants to break the lines. I think he wants to be box to box. I think he wants to score goals. I don't think he wants to sit in front of the back four, and also I think he's right. McTominay, one of the big things he's got is his fitness level, his engine. Carrick had a great fitness level, but he wasn't tenaciously box to box. He couldn't get back and forward. He just sat in front of the back four on the centre circle. If you've got the energy and stamina of Scott McTominay, do you want him to just sit in front of the back four going side to side? He's right. He could really test the opposition. So I think United do need to look at a centre defensive midfielder. Also, let's talk about Van Gaal for a moment. He's come out again. I mean, he never shuts up about having a go at United. I think at the end of the day, he's a manager with a fantastic CV who doesn't like that the last thing on his CV was failure. He's coming out talking about turnover, talking about how United should have spent more. I mean, look, ultimately, some people will think Van Gaal could have done a great job. Some people won't. I remember it. I lived it. My personal opinion is I wanted him sacked at Christmas. Those last 4 months of him being here were horrible. I just wanted him out, and he got the sack, and I was happy about it. I can't rewrite history. I was happy about it, and I trust my opinion that, back then, I wanted him out for a long time. I couldn't stand the football that he played. I didn't really like his personality, and I thought he was done. I really did. I thought he was absolutely, he was washed. Personal automatic, as I said. You can try and rewrite history. A lot of people try and do it. He was not going to be the next great manager of Manchester United. He'd been there a long time and the football was atrocious. If he's moaning about not getting the signings that he wanted, as far as I remember, he spent not far off 300 million quid. He also conducted one of the worst summers we've ever had, selling Van Persie, Raphael, who was in his early mid-20s, Johnny Evans was 27, Nani was about the same age as well, and he sold Hernandez. He sold 5 players for next to no money. Now, if he wants to reference that and say, well, I didn't get the replacements, well, maybe don't sell those players in the first place. Don't sell players until you know what your replacements are. So again, that shows his incompetence. He was past it, and I've got no sympathy for the guy. If he'd have had another year at United, I dread to think what would have happened. We were awful under him. He did get money. He also bought Di Maria and sold him within a year. He made some of the. I think Van Gaal caused more damage to Manchester United than Moyes, Mourinho, and Ollie. And you know, Ollie has done some bad things, but I think Ollie's on the right track. But it's just the rewriting of history. Oh yeah, we should have kept Van Gaal. I think people want to... I think we live in this world now where everyone laughs at Moyes and everyone wants Ollie to do well, and then you've got Van Gaal and Mourinho. And I think the modern cool thing to do is to make out that Van Gaal was doing a great job and Mourinho was the villain. And look, I think they both needed to get the sack, but Mourinho, what he did was far better than what Van Gaal did. And Van Gaal gets this credit because he bought Martial. Well, a lot of that was down to Giggs. He gave a debut to Rashford. He was also he did give a debut to Rashford because there was nobody else left. He was trying to play Will Keane before him. Will Keane, and some of the other people he gave young debuts to, Paddy McNair, who he subbed a couple of times around half an hour and destroyed his confidence. Borthwick Jackson, oh, he's great. So when you delve into Van Gaal, I personally, and I don't, you know, it's all about opinion. And if people, you know, I know Rance is the same. He thinks Van Gaal was great. I think the evidence is overwhelmingly against that guy. I think he caused major problems. I think he sold players he shouldn't have done. I think he bought players he shouldn't have done. I thought the playing style was awful. 2 holding midfielders, side-to-side football. We were dreadful. And I think that ultimately he just wasn't a good manager anymore. And I think that's why he failed. And I think looking for excuses, we're trying to build something else now. You're 2 managers ago. Be quiet, crack on with your retirement, and look back to your days at Ajax and Barcelona, because that's when you were a great manager, not at United. Anyway, look, Cooking with Goldbridge at midday. Check out the link in the video description. Who do you think are United's top 5 transfer targets at the moment, in your opinion? I'm very interested to see what you think are our top 5 transfer targets. Sancho, Bellingham, Grealish, Werner, Dembele is what I'm being told, and it's what I'm thinking, and it's what other people are talking about as well, and I don't think that's far wrong. Out of those 5, for me, Sancho, Bellingham, Werner. Happy days. Thanks for watching. Smash a like on the video, and I'll speak to you all later.